We are live, and it is Friday, April the 12th, as we head into the weekend. One of the last 2 days of the NBA regular season. Every team is playing tonight. Don't worry, we're going to have a little NBA big game breakdown style from Teddy Covers, but we also have the NBA live show at 4:15 Eastern today, so check that out. Also talking some NHL and MLB with BRYAN LEONARD, and UFC 300 this weekend, so we're going to have Gianni The Greek on to break down the UFC fight. And Teddy's also going to get a little bit of an advanced look at the NFL draft, which is right around the corner. So covering lots of sports, lots of topics here on Friday's WagerTalk Today. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez. Don't you worry, he'll be back on Monday. Co-host Teddy Covers is not fretting. I'm sure he's excited as always. And we're going to bring on our first guest direct from Las Vegas. You know what, guys? It's BRYAN LEONARD, and it's an all Las Vegas show because we also have Arthur DiCesare on at the close. Gianni, of course, and Teddy from Vegas, but none of them started in Las Vegas. They all migrated there at one point or the next. BRYAN LEONARD via Cleveland, Ohio. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing great. Excited for a full day of handicapping here, and hopefully we can get you some winners.
Well, let's talk some NHL right off the top. Minnesota traveling right here to Las Vegas. Look at the WagerTalk live odds screen. I'm seeing Vegas in the minus 170 range. Total sitting at 6, juice to the under. What do you want to do with the Wild and the Golden Knights NHL Friday night action?
It should be an exciting night down at the Fortress. Marc-Andre Fleury expected to be in goal tonight. He's been confirmed in that regard. It could be his very last start in Las Vegas. We don't know if he's coming back again next year or not. He hasn't made that decision. So I know he's beloved here in Las Vegas. He was a hero for the Vegas franchise the first 4 years of the Knights being here. Fans are excited to see him play tonight. Last time Minnesota was here, we expected him to play, and it broke a lot of people's hearts that he wasn't able to be out there. So big day for him and a big day for the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Minnesota's lost 7 of the last 9 games in this series, but they have won 2 of 5 in this building. They played better here than they have back in Minnesota. The Wild, obviously, are out of the playoff hunt and travel to San Jose for the second game of a back-to-back tomorrow. But this is the game they'll want to win for Fleury. Vegas enters play having lost 3 straight on the road to Arizona, a team they had a big lead on the other day, give up 6 goals in the third period. Vancouver, another game that they had a lead and blew it late. And then Edmonton, a game in which Vegas really didn't come to play. In fact, they kept 4 of their players back in Vegas, so they didn't show, and it was a no-show as they just were completely dominated by Edmonton in that game. They're currently lined up to face the Dallas Stars in the first round, something no team wants to look for right now. So Dallas is playing really strong hockey, and as good as the other teams are with home ice advantage in this, they're a step down from the Stars. So Vegas clearly needs to play well down the stretch to get out of this number 8 seed. They finished the season with 4 straight home games. In a recent league-wide poll said that this was the toughest building to win on if you're a road team. Vegas has to take advantage of that and win these last 4 games, get out of that number 8 spot. I like them tonight. I think they bounced back strong off of that terrible road trip where they really look bad. It looked like they didn't even care. Maybe they were playing for playoff position. Who knows? I've heard rumors that they're trying to play Vancouver, and I don't blame them for that. But in order to play Vancouver, they got to get out of this spot where they're playing Dallas. Huge game for Vegas. They've got to win this game tonight. Usually, you don't want to play on teams that are in must-win situations. I'll be on Vegas tonight. Based on the way they played the last 3 games, I expect Vegas to really come out and play a strong game tonight at home against Minnesota.
So it was probably, a month ago that I think it was you that came on, Brian. We're like, Vegas is in trouble. Vegas isn't doing anything right. And they've kind of righted the ship. Mm-hmm. But this is teams defending Stanley Cup champs. They haven't even clinched the 8th seed yet or clinched a playoff spot yet. St. Louis can still catch them. Are they any good? Are they going anywhere? Do we actually want to lay prices with this team? Because my sense for Vegas this year is I'd rather fade this team than back them, especially at any price where I'm laying $170 with them.
If you look back after they had that opening run to start the season, they've been a losing hockey team. But keep in mind, they have had a tremendous amount about injuries this year, tremendous amount of injuries, and they've been to key players. So they've been going in and out. You talked about that streak where they started playing better. They brought in 3 new players for the trade deadline, and the 2 guys got back into it. And after a few days, they started learning how to play better, and they did play better. And now they brought back the last guy that they picked up, Hurdle from San Jose. He's starting to get back in the lineup. So there's a little part of getting to know each other a little bit once again there. But once these guys have been together and have been on the ice for a long time, going into the playoffs, I really like their situation. This is a team, you've just got to keep in mind, there are teams that go to the playoffs every year, and Vegas has done so all but one year. They went to the playoffs last year. They were an afterthought. They got everybody together at the one time, and they played well. They were healthy through the playoffs. They got back their team leader in Mark Stone. Don't know if he's going to be back this year or not. They still have not decided if he's going to come back. He's obviously loved to be back. But this is a veteran team that once they get to playoffs, they're able to turn it on. We've seen this in the past from the Tampa Bay Lightning. When they had all their success, they would just get to the point where if they just made the playoffs, they were happy. They knew they could win on the road. Vegas can win on the road. This is one of the teams that I think if they get the right matchup, they play Vancouver, I think they're going to beat Vancouver. If they got to play Colorado, who knows? They play pretty well against Colorado, but we'll see. I don't want to play in Dallas. Dallas right now, I picked them before the season started. Dallas plays very much like they do. Very good defensive team that can score some goals at home. So I understand your position on this, but this is going to be a different team once the playoffs start.
It's Bryan Leonard talking some NHL, and the playoffs start 1 week from tomorrow, next Saturday, April the 20th. And the format for the 9th straight year is what they've been doing recently. It's top 3 teams from each division make it, and then 2 wild cards from the conference. So different, obviously, than they did it maybe a decade ago when I used to follow hockey, and then also quite different than the NBA. And we've talked a lot about the NBA with the play-in round. And once again, more NBA talk today at 4:15 Eastern, live here on WagerTalk TV at the NBA Tip-Off Show. But Bryan, so glad you chose this game. The other day, Teddy, a week ago when I was on, Teddy was talking about the A's home field, worst in the league, no home field advantage, fade in many spots. And I thought to myself, Teddy, at the time when you were doing that, well, the A's probably won't be favored in a single game this season, and then I should have known there's some really other bad teams that'll travel there since everybody plays everyone now. The Rockies will be there and the Nationals will be there, but I was forgetting that, right? I was thinking American League only. And we get that tonight, Bryan. Your potentially Las Vegas A's, now your Sacramento A's, are a home favorite against my once upon a time Washington Nationals. Do they deserve to be favored tonight, Bryan? What are you doing with this game? Very fascinated by this one.
I thought your lead-in was going to be, now after all that playoff talk, we get to Major League Baseball, and we got Washington at Oakland. It's 2 teams that likely will not be in the postseason, but you always can find value on teams, and I liked Washington coming in on the season wins. Oakland's a team that everybody just assumes they're going to lose because they don't have a lot of talent. Well, I haven't learned, and I think we've all learned this over the years, when you have teams that are not very good, when they get put into that favorite position where they don't usually get it, they usually do pretty well. And there's a reason why they're a favorite in this game. They've got a sizable starting pitcher advantage here. Jake Irvin enters play with a lot of blue on his StatCast page. His hard hit rate is 50% with an expected batting average of .319. Oakland answers with Paul Blackburn on the mound. His advanced numbers have been excellent. He's got a 25.6 hard hit rate, which is almost half of what Irvin's hard hit rate is. He's got a minuscule walk rate of only 2.1%. He's not a strikeout pitcher, but keeps opponents off balance. And considering the Nationals rarely face him and don't play in this stadium very often, I think that's a clear home edge for Oakland here. This is a stadium you don't see anywhere else. They've got a lot of foul territory in this building. It's in a ballpark where they're not going to get much fans. So most of these teams playing are used to a lot of fan chatter. They're not going to get that here in Oakland. So it's a totally different situation. We also expect a lower scoring affair as both bullpens are in good shape for this one. The back of the Nationals bullpens had the last 2 days of rest, and none of the Athletics bullpen has pitched back-to-back. So in a low-scoring game, I like Oakland here. Blackburn's a guy who doesn't strike out a lot of opposition, so he doesn't take a lot of money from the wise guys. But in this ballpark, where you don't give up a lot of home runs, there's a lot of foul territory, that's a big advantage, having this advantage for the starters, Blackburn over Irvin. And I think that's the way to go here. Maybe Oakland in the first half is another way to play it. Washington team total under. Lots of ways to look at this if you don't want to lay the minus number on Oakland. But I think they get the victory here.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you side versus total here because, I mean, the A's aren't hitting. They won 1-0 yesterday. Sears was brilliant in that ball game. But I think, they played 13 games. They've scored more than 4 runs exactly once so far this season. If you had to make one bet here, would it be full game side, first 5 side, team total under, or full game under?
I like them all. 14 parlay. No, I'll go with Oakland. I'm a traditional guy. I play the full games. I don't play the first halves very often. I love the back end of the Oakland bullpen if they can get there. Their closer's excellent. He's just got amazing stuff. So I'll take Oakland in the game, but there's many ways to play this, and it wouldn't surprise me if anybody wanted to play any other. So I just think Oakland, bad teams win once in a while. Bad teams win 55 games, 60 games a year, and we like Oakland in this one.
Yeah, Brian, I've always said that. I was going to say the worst team in baseball wins 50-plus games, but I have to be careful with that because I believe Oakland last year won exactly 50 games. They barely got there. That's how bad they were. I don't have it in front of me, but I think they might have been 50 and 112. But on the other side of the coin, we're talking about the Dodgers and how strong they look. The worst teams the best teams in baseball lose 50-plus games, normally more. So there is a reason for them to be favored several times. And Oakland, by the way, in good current form. For those not paying attention, they've won 4 of their last 5 at Detroit and Texas as a good-sized underdog in 3 of those 4 wins. But now they're favored for the first time this season. And something else Brian Leonard pointed out with me on the baseball show earlier this week that got me thinking, Brian, was how bad of a fielding team they are. And I thought to myself, man, if there's like one thing, you got no pitching, you got no hitting, at least field the ball well. And I went back and looked, and last year, you're right, they were 28th out of 30th in fielding percentage and second to last with the most errors, second most errors behind only the Giants, the only worst team last year. So it's something to keep an eye on. They're just bad all the way around, and they're a lame duck team. If people didn't see last week, it was announced they'll be moving to Sacramento for the next 2 to 3 years if they ever get to Las Vegas after that. 10,000 seat park, they can get up to 14,000. So I was laughing when he said playoffs because can you imagine if they make the postseason the next couple years and they can only host 14,000 people? I'm rooting for the A's just for that reason. Brian, what else you got going on at WagerTalk.com?
Yeah, this the Vegas play is my best play in the NHL, and Oakland was one of my top 2 I've got in baseball. I've been struggling a little bit lately, so I haven't put up a lot of things for sale. So no need to buy anything today. I do want to point out, as you mentioned, with these teams and when the Oakland's these bad teams, baseball is different, totally different. When you've got 5 starting pitchers, some teams even have 6, and most teams end up with 10 starting pitchers at the end of the season. That's a lot of difference between the starting pitchers, and you don't have that in like the NBA. If your best teams in the NBA are going to win 70-80% of the games, it's not that way in baseball. So that's why I like playing underdogs in baseball, although I've got a favorite today. But there's always money. There's always ways to make money in baseball, which I love.
Yeah, we have a lot of baseball talk every day here on the network. MLB First Pitch live at 2 o'clock Eastern today, and most weekdays we went early yesterday just because they were mostly daytime games. Yet another reason to hit subscribe and hit the bell for instant alerts. When the NBA show, the baseball shows, the free play videos go up each and every day here. Subscribe and hit that bell here on Wager Talk TV. All right, Teddy, we're going to get to some UFC 300 in a few moments with Gianni The Greek, also Arthur DiCesare from Las Vegas, the Superbook in Las Vegas. But in the meantime, and maybe we'll talk to Art about this a little bit, the NFL draft is around the corner. What is your take on the draft? I don't mess with it too much. It's a one-off event, so for me, it's really not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, I guess you could say. But a lot of people love to bet the NFL draft. And what is your take on it?
Sure. I want to give just a little NFL draft primer. The next 2 weeks are they're on center stage, or as much center stage as they're going to be. Obviously, the draft, I believe, starts 2 weeks from yesterday. in the NFL, but we're going to see these numbers move. And I want to talk about the different type of bets that you can find. You can find who's the number one going to be, who's the number two, all the top 10, in which there are always multiple options. We're looking for fewer bets with multiple options and more yes, no, over, under. Again, when you talk about how to win long-term betting on sports, the yes, no's, the over, unders, it's real simple. Side A, side B. When you're talking about 5 or 10 or 20 or 32 different choices, the juice is higher, the chances of winning are lower. So we talk about who's the number one pick going to be, or number two, or any of the top 10 that you can bet. Those aren't bets I tend to get involved with. You have the first offensive lineman drafted or the first defensive player drafted or all those type of bets. And again, it's a similar concept. Lots of options, not bets I tend to look at. Team to draft a player. Who's going to draft Bo Nix or who's going to draft Xavier Worthy or Michael Penix? Again, lots of options and not that much good stuff to get involved. The position of a team's first drafted player. For example, who's the Ravens, what positions their first drafted player is going to be. Here's something where you might be able to find something, but again, lots of different options, for the team's first drafted player's position. Another thing that people get involved with that I've seen have success at times is the number of drafted players in round one. How many cornerbacks are going to get drafted in round one, or how many quarterbacks, or how many wide receivers? And again, over, under, 2 options. That's something that's reasonable to focus on. But when you're talking about how many cornerbacks are going to get drafted in the first round, there's a lot of handicapping that goes into that when it comes to actually winning that wager and figuring out what the right side is. So the bread and butter, the one the books lose money on, the one the books are, we haven't seen them posted them real early this year, the bets to highlight when it comes to the NFL draft. According to my 26 years in Las Vegas, according to all the guys I know that take this seriously, player over under any certain draft position. Marvin Harrison Jr., is he going over 3.5, under 3.5? Any one of those guys. Again, over under, 2 choices. That is the best way to find positive expectation wagers when it comes to the NFL draft. Now know this. This is not a static market. The markets do nothing, and then go crazy in an hour. So if you're betting this stuff, you got to be paying attention and get ready to pull the trigger. As soon as you see that key piece of info, don't wait. Fire away. Little NFL draft betting primer. Hope you were able to pick something up off of what I was laying down. Steve?
Yeah, very interesting, Teddy. It's something I don't mess with too much, but I agree with you. I think the over-unders are the way to go. The 2 I would say I do somewhat look at sometimes is position players first round. I like where you're going with that because you can get the math working a little bit. And then also, instead of exactly where the guy goes 3rd or 4th, I like that over-under option as well. Gives you a little bit more wiggle room. NFL draft, by the way, starts 2 weeks from yesterday, Thursday the 25th. It's 26th and the 27th. But obviously, Thursday night, the 25th, in a couple weeks will be the big night with that first round going on national TV. Teddy, before we get to Gianni real quick, I got to ask you, we had some people asking in the comments yesterday. And by the way, please ask questions in the live chat right now. I'm going to monitor it today on Friday. If you're watching us on YouTube Shorts, welcome. Instagram Live is also an option now on your mobile device. And also, of course, the post-play, the replay here, the YouTube comments on WagerTalk TV. I monitor those as well, and we reply back. But we had some Free Isaac, hashtag Free Isaac questions, concerns, updates, and I didn't think to ask you yesterday, Teddy. So anybody that missed, go back and watch Tuesday's episode so you get yourself caught up, and then come back and watch the answer here. But how's Isaac going? I know you had your second principal meeting on Wednesday in the past month. You guys getting to know each other well?
First, I got to say, I was blown away by how much feedback I got. Thank
cool.
you guys for taking the time. I was getting texts and tweets and all kinds of stuff. I guess we hit a chord with when we go, how do I raise my kid right? Because I don't know. So we went in and met the principal, and Isaac had to come up sign a restorative justice action plan, in which he he has to write letters to the kid that he got in a fight with, and the teacher that he interrupted the class, and he had to whatever. From a punishment standpoint, whatever. I mean, he had to do all that. And he had so the day that he went back, he had in-school suspension that day, so he got all that stuff done. He wrote his apology letters, and whatever. He felt bad. He didn't, it's a friend of him. He didn't want his friend to be think that he was trying to kick his ass. From a how much punishment standpoint did he get? We took away his phone. We took away. He was grounded for the weekend, but that was it. I didn't add on to that. I talked with his closest relative other than me and his mom is his cousin. And I talked to his cousin who's a freshman at Penn State right now. And he's like, "Oh, I'll talk to Isaac. Don't you worry about that. Yeah. Leave it to me. I'll punish him." So that's what we did. I didn't bring the hammer down. He had to do the school stuff, and life began as normal again yesterday. So again, thank you guys. It's really, I'm humbled by how many well thought out responses I got. Not just guys, just man. I really appreciate it. I genuinely do. So thank you. For caring. Cheers.
Yeah, we're a family here at WagerTalk. We say that all the time, but it really is true. We all know each other really well. We do know each other's families also. Of course, my kids know Isaac very well. They all really enjoy hanging out a couple years ago at the meet and greet. And everything is relative. And I guess what I didn't like about this whole situation was how hard and fast the automatic suspension was the first time. Viewers, if you weren't with us a month ago when Isaac got suspended the first time, it's because he dumped a cone of ice on a kid, another buddy of his. The second time was because he was roughhousing with a headlock with his buddy. I mean, come on. I get that the school system and the principals, they don't want discretion because that puts their neck on the line. But both of these situations were nothing. Neither one never should have been a suspension. With that said, though, Isaac needs to learn, that obviously every situation is different. And if you're on thin ice after the first one, you got to tiptoe a little bit. So, but I know Isaac personally, and he is a great kid, as Prez said also on Tuesday. So it's comical. Hopefully it does not affect him long term. But it's also a good life lesson. But I think you handled it right. Short little teeny punishment and then let him move on. I think he already felt bad about it. So thank you for the update. Hashtag Free Isaac lives on. And we see Big Daddy appreciated the update in the comments. And we got a lot of our loyal viewer, our families in the comment. Eric DeLong, Have Cash is here today. Rita Marco. We got a lot of them. Jack Marco, Tyler. Just the normal guys are here. So I know they appreciated the update as well. All right, let's talk a little UFC 300. And we're going to look at some NBA after that with Teddy and also Arthur DiCesare. But we bring on Gianni The Greek, UFC expert. In fact, you can see him on national TV talking UFC. And Johnny, let's get right to it. Big event this weekend, UFC 300. What are you looking at?
Yes, sir. So just dumping a little gold. Anyone that's been following the last few months, the WagerTalk TV, and got on gold, we are at that price that we were expecting to reach, near 2,500. You want to dump a little bit of that right now because nothing's going to go straight up, and then we'll rebuy after the pullback back to the scene of the crime. And over the next 6 to 12 months, things are going to get bad. Pile up on uranium, pile up on oil, pile up on gas. You'll do just fine. Speaking of UFC 300, I love this card. Already released 7 premium plays, including a 5%. And 4% plays. I'm going to share 4% plays here for free picks because I love you guys. And I've been red hot in MMA this year, over 30% ROI. So I'm dialed in. What do you want to start with? Start off with Alexander RAKIC in the light heavyweight bout. Love that fight. This kid should be at least a minus 150 favorite and should have bet up to minus 200. Yeah, that's correct. He beats Yuri Prochazka 2 out of 3 times. It's just skill set. With Prochazka, you were never going to get value just because of the way he came onto the scene. He came in with a lot of hype. He became a fan favorite instantly, and he just looks the part. And now he's coming off his first loss, which is by knockout in the second round. Many expect him to bounce back. Let's not forget, prior to that loss, he had 3 straight performance bonuses. Again, he cashed tickets, but he wasn't offering value. I say it all the time. There are bad bets that cash all the time. Right now, someone just hit a number on roulette as I speak. Couldn't have made a worse bet, but they hit it. God bless them. Bad bets do win, and that's what was going on with Prochazka. But against RAKIC, he's just better everywhere, man. Bottom line, he's got 2 times the UFC experience, 2.5 times the knockdown rate, so you know he's got power. He gets hit so much less. His striking defense off the charts compared to Prochazka. And then look at the ground game, which he has, spends a lot more time in control and a lot less time getting control. This kid's being overlooked because he doesn't have name recognition and he's coming off the layoff. I laid minus 115, minus 120. I would have made it a 4% play at minus 150. Again, I think we have such an edge that win or lose, I sleep comfortable. I placed a great bet on Alexander RAKIC.
It looks like the money's coming the other way on that right now. I'm seeing minus 110. DraftKings just moved to minus 110. I'm seeing that for Prochazka. I'm seeing that number in the global books as well. Is this one of those scenarios?
It's going to continue. Now the money's starting to get to the window. Now they're starting to bet UFC 300. The betting public, this is kind of like the Super Bowl. UFC 300 is the Super Bowl for MMA. Like UFC 100, 200, those were huge events. So UFC 300 is a major event where it's stacked the card top to bottom. So you're going to get a heavier public money saturation than you would on a normal card. Like you're going to get even the most novice of MMA sports bettors wanting action on this card, watching it at someone's house for pay-per-view, that kind of stuff. So the name recognition alone told me that the money was going to come the other way. But I thought there was so much value that I jumped on it immediately, kind of like my 5% play. I wasn't concerned that the public was going to come in the other way and that the line may drop a little bit and I'd get a better price by waiting. I didn't want to risk the price that was already there based on my implied win probability. I thought the market was so wrong, I didn't need the public to get me a better price. I was just fine striking where it was. But yeah, I do not fault anyone that agrees with me who wants to wait till Saturday night, because in some spots, this could even flip at the square books where Prochazka closes the favorite. Do not be surprised against Alexander RAKIC. Again, he hasn't fought since May of 2022, and in that fight, he's coming off a loss where he got knocked out in the third round against Jan Blachowicz. So I expect to see that money to continue coming in opposite. It's just the wrong side.
It's interesting, Johnny. You know, I never thought about UFC 300 being a huge event like that, but you're right. I mean, it really is. 100 and 200s are both big. Makes a lot of sense. Same thing with the Triple Crown races and horse racing, the Preakness, the Belmont, the Kentucky Derby. You get so much overlay square money coming in on these type of events. You could definitely take advantage. The public probably bets favorites, I would think, in UFC. Is that the case? Is there an underdog you're looking at?
Yeah. They tend to bet the favorites. They tend to bet the unders. That's why historically, if just blindly, if you did nothing but bet over 3.5, over 4.5, you would have a double-digit positive ROI over the last decade plus. And it's kind of like the NFL, where for a period of time, now the market's become more efficient, but the overs were shaded just so heavily that it was almost under or pass in a lot of situations because people like to see points. Well, in MMA and combat sports, people like to see finishes. They don't want to see decisions. It's like seeing a 1-0 baseball game. Unless you're into defense and pitching, you want to see home runs. And that's why with things like that, that ends up happening. And favorites, they love tying up favorites in parlays. They love parlaying, and they love parlaying big favorites because they don't want to lay a lot of money to win a little bit. They want to lay a little bit to win a lot. And the sportsbooks got you exactly where they want you when your bankroll's, in that position. So I have a dog for you as well. And this is another dog that should actually be going off as the favorite. And that's Sodiq Yusuff against Diego Lopez. Listen, Diego Lopez has all the hype behind him. Like even Dana loves Diego Lopez. The UFC loves Diego Lopez. And what's not to love? Like he's got a great personality. He's got such a huge fan base in Mexico. He looks the part. He's young, handsome. So the future is bright for him. So I wasn't surprised to see him overvalued against a guy like Sodiq Yusuff coming in off a loss. Let's not forget it was fight of the night, and he did outland his opponent. And he just doesn't have that huge name recognition. But when you dig into the data, if you cover both names and just look at the data, not even know who's who, just fighter A, fighter B, you would conclude Sodiq Yusuff should be favored over Diego Lopez. Bottom line, he's got over 3x the UFC experience Lopez has. He's got positive strike differential against negative strike differential, and versus an opponent who only grapples for about 4% of the time. Well, at least that's what he's controlled opponents by. Like, he wants to stand. That's the bottom line. And he's coming off 3 straight bonuses. So there's a lot of recency bias on the Lopez side. I like Sadiq Youssef a lot at plus 120, even at even money. You're getting the best of it because, again, he should be favored in this spot. Don't forget, he's got 2 losses. In both those losses, he outlanded his opponent. So could have went either way. And if he was coming into this fight undefeated, he would be favored. As I stated, lay him at all the way down to even money, but you won't have to because the Lopez money will keep coming in.
Gianni The Greek breaking down UFC. Johnny, I got no follow on that. I do want to ask you, you've had some really good draft opinions over the years and some draft bets. NFL draft now coming into center stage. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Have you done anything in the draft yet? Are you going to do anything for the draft this year? When does that info start to come for you?
100%. I believe a package was already created because I know that the money's coming in. I moved for 2 different groups that's what they do. They hammer props specifically. And I just piggyback their NFL. I don't even have an opinion. It's not my work, so I won't even take credit for it. It's not like I have an opinion week by week. I have an opinion day by day on the games that I'm betting. But on the draft, I would have to put so much hours and time into it. And I just think going up against traders like the guys that I move for, it just makes it such a big hill to climb. I'd rather just sit back and piggyback dudes that already have the recipe. I'm fine. I don't need to have it. So yeah, my subscribers will start getting draft picks as they fire. Like, they'll just start coming in, and they'll start coming in heavily. And fortunately, we're way ahead of the market. These guys are way ahead. So it's not like, and they don't bet the most obscure props. They bet the most readily available props because they want to get the most amount of money down. So they're not finding that prop that's available at one spot. They're betting props that are available everywhere because, again, they need to get money down. And yeah, you'll start receiving them. I'll tweet it out for sure once I fire the first couple bets.
Gianni The Greek. So before we let you go, we're going to give you a chance to promo, but a lot of times you've got some other opinions. You've got some NBA that you're moving, or some MLB that you're moving, or something else. Why don't you give our viewing audience a taste of what it is that you're betting today?
All right. So far, we have not moved on anything yet. Like, where I could tell you, yeah, this we already got down on, this we moved on. But I always look at the board quickly. I lean strong under in NBA, under Nuggets Spurs. That's the one that jumped out at me the most. I'm being very selective until we get to the playoffs. I think I'm top 1-2 in NBA, being selective this entire season. In Major League Baseball, I've been betting dogs. It's been going well for me. I like Miami at home. I'd probably take the +1.5 in that game. And then a little further down, I also like Cleveland over the Yankees, and I like that one under, but it's got to be at 9. I think it's 8.5 now across the board. So some of the values have been extracted. But like I said, I haven't fired on anything, surprisingly. Usually by 5 a.m., they're coming in, so I don't know what the delay is. I almost checked my phone 2 or 3 times, make sure there's no problems with Wi-Fi. But yeah, it's been a slow day moving so far.
It's Gianni The Greek. Always love talking to Gianni, and you can tell him a little bit more about the Steam Room with Ace as well. And, of course, you've got a huge best bet card, as you said, for UFC 300.
Yeah, indeed. I'll be in there today, actually, in the Steam Room today, 5 p.m. Eastern, going over last week's results, last 30 days results, and last 365 days results. Every week I go in there, transparency, transparency, transparency. Tell you when I win, tell you when I lose, and more importantly, break down exactly how I urge you to bet size based on your bankroll and the profit we've been able to make by doing that, not just this year, but last year, the year before that, before that, before that, before that, and before that. So if you're ready to grind or actually learn how I do it, just jump into the Steam room. You will enjoy it, that's for sure. You're going to get value out of it 100%, because I get a lot of live bets during it throughout. And like I said, UFC 300, that's where my biggest bets will be this weekend for sure, with 100% certainty. I think the greatest edge is on a card like this, but I'll be firing baseball, NBA, and anything else that comes across. So looking forward to this weekend for sure. And like always, thank you so much for having me, and thank you guys for the support.
Yeah, it's always great seeing you. And once again, a Steam Room tonight on Fridays, to check that out. That is interactive as it gets with Vegas Runner. You can chime in wt.buzz/VR, and he has a bonus free play in UFC 300. He gave you 2 of them on the show. He's got a bonus 3rd free play for you on his page right now at WagerTalk.com. All right, we're going to get to Arthur DiCesare in a moment, but Teddy, we haven't talked much NBA at all today, so let's do a quick big game breakdown of the NBA, and then, of course, you'll be back at 4:15 Eastern live on Friday talking about all the games with viewer questions. What are you looking at in the NBA for big game?
Yeah, I haven't played any NBA yet for today. I'm not convinced that I will. That being said, this is certainly one that stands out, and if I'm going to play something, this is on the short list. At this stage of the season, sometimes the point spread tells you all you need to know. For example, yesterday, the Knicks were favored in Boston before Tatum and Brown were announced in. All of a sudden, the Knicks are chalk in Boston. Okay, that tells you what you need to know. So tonight, big game breakdown. We have the Washington Wizards favored at home over a playoff team. What gives? Chicago Bulls. Right now, look at the WagerTalk live odds screen. Pretty much 2 across the board, total 222.5. Bulls and Wizards. So Chicago played last night in Detroit. It was an intense game. They were motivated. They came out. They routed the Pistons. 127-105. That clinched the 9 seed for Chicago. Now they have home court edge against the 10-seeded Hawks in the first game of the postseason. And that's what they were aiming for. Chicago 0-7 ATS off their last 7 wins. Only 1-6 straight up off their last 7 wins. I think they beat the Blazers by a bucket one time. Locked in, not good off a loss. Off a win, I should say. This is not a balls to the wall game for the Chicago Bulls. It has all the makings of a no-show game. And even if it looks like they're going to have their starters start, I'm not convinced they're going to be there in the 4th quarter. Look, Washington is what they are. It's one of the worst seasons in franchise history. But they've actually been fairly competitive down the stretch. They're on a 4-game losing streak. All 4 of those games, single-digit losses. They took it to Minnesota the other night before Anthony Edwards went nuts and led that game. And they've been a winning point spread proposition at home over the course of the last month. I'll give the Wizards a shot here. Again, we're not doing big wagers on the last weekend of the NBA regular season. But some action on Washington here makes a whole lot of sense for this better. I think the Bulls are no-shows tonight. Give me Washington minus the deuce. And there's your big game breakdown. And be sure to take advantage. Playoff package now available. And if you buy it today, you get the rest of the regular season for free. 188, very reasonable for a proven profit producer throughout the postseason. Get on board. There's a big game breakdown.
Look, that's for everybody. Everybody right now. Yeah, Teddy, no promo code needed and unlimited cappers. You can get both Teddy Covers and myself, Steve Merrill, for the entire NBA rest of the regular season and postseason for $188 each. That works out to just $2.50 a day each. How about $5 a day for both of us? And we have won consistently for decades in the NBA playoffs. This time of year is great. Everyone's scared of late season NBA. I went 2-0 last night. I cashed a free play on those Bulls for everybody and also an easy under in that Warriors-Portland game. So I love this time of the year. 29-17 last year alone in the NBA playoffs, and I'm number 1 all time in the NBA at WagerTalk. Teddy has done fantastic in the NBA playoffs as well. Check him out later today, 4:15 Eastern live here, talking about all the games on the board. And once again, the 188 special, no promo code needed at WagerTalk.com. All right, let's get to him. Arthur DiCesare, one of my, if not my, maybe favorite segment of the week. I was going to say my favorite segment, Art, but I don't want to offend anybody else. Always great to see you. Always love when I get to guest host for the Prez on a Friday because we get to chat. And he's, of course, Arthur's a risk supervisor at the Westgate Superbook in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I'll tell you what, we got a lot to cover. We've been talking NFL draft a little bit. So before I forget, I'll start that off and Teddy can follow with whatever. Your thoughts on the NFL draft betting? It's less than 2 weeks away. More handle than ever. Sharps win, public loses. How does it work for you guys? Do you guys dread it? It's such an information-based thing, right? like 2 minutes from now, something could change. Someone could say something, and you got to drastically adjust the number one pick. Well, Caleb Williams is going to be the number one pick, at least according to the market. He was like 1-50 last I checked. But last year, remember, guys were jumping around minus money, plus money on draft day, I think, for like the number one. There was a lot of uncertainty last year.
Yeah, it's a crazy market now. For us, obviously, we don't get involved in the sense where we put it up 2 weeks, even a week in advance. Draft is on Thursday. Most likely get those numbers up Monday. And then they're really only bet on till about midday Wednesday because there's a 24-hour rule. 24 hours before the NFL draft, we have to take the odds down. So we really only give you about a 2.5 day window to make those bets. We'll have all the things. Obviously, we don't have the number one pick, but we'll have over-under draft positions, number of quarterbacks in the first round, number of receivers, first offensive lineman drafted. Maybe we'll pick a couple of schools, like Alabama and Michigan, and, put their draft number up on first-round picks or, things of that nature. So, obviously, the quarterbacks are always very popular, their draft positions and where they go, and you got a bunch of them this year who look to go in the top, 5, 10, or 15 picks. So those are the ones that always move the needle. But you're right, Steve. It is such a sharp market. Obviously, we take lower limits on that, a nickel or a dime on certain things, depending on what the prop is. But, man, the numbers move and the juice moves incredibly on those. You could see something open minus 140, and then all of a sudden it's minus $3. It's just the way it is.
Who was it? Trayvon Walker was 20-1, and next thing you know, he's minus 300. That's the name that I think that was 2 years ago, where those type of movements can and do happen. I want to ask, Art, is the NFL draft a loss leader for you guys? Do you expect to make money on the NFL draft? Do you hope to break even? I've heard bookmakers tell me nightmare stories about the NFL draft, talking about how we never make any money on it, and we wish we could stop booking it, but all the other books have it, so we have to, but we try to keep our limits low, and it's essentially like the 99-cent hot dog or something. Some people are excited about. That's a loss leader for them. Do you expect to make money booking the NFL draft?
I look at it like this, Teddy. Obviously, we keep the limits low. Nickel, dime, certain things, maybe even lower. Only offer, if someone's 50-1, whatever the case may be. But you're right. It is one of those things. And we're in a position now in the world, 2024, you can't not have it. Everyone has these things. Everyone offers. So will we offer as extensive a menu as everyone else? No, but we might try to come up with a couple of things that other people don't have. I think for us, we look, if we make a little bit of a profit, that's a home run. We lose a little bit, break even, that's a home run as well. You don't want to get into a point where you lose 5, 10, 15 dimes, on a Thursday, booking an NFL draft. So that's kind of the situation you want to be in. And we recognize that you're not getting general public people. They're not coming in and betting the NFL draft. So we know that's part of it, and that's why the limits are low.
So you didn't say exactly the answer, but the answer is this. The limits are low for the NFL draft. And any bookmaker will tell you when the limits are higher, that means they're more confident in their numbers. When the limits are lower, that means they're trying to reduce their own risk and liability. Art, I want to ask you about the women's college basketball in the Final Four, because from a rating standpoint, the women's Final Four, the women's championship game had like 4 million more viewers than the men's championship game. And the talk was that the women's championship game, I think the quote from Chris Andrews at the South Point was, it was bet like a well-bet college football game. How much handle did you get on the women's national championship game compared to the men's? Give me a ratio. Was it 1-1? Was it 10-1 for the men? Was it 50-1 for the men? Was it 2-1? Give me a guesstimate on that. I'm fascinated and curious.
Yeah. Now, listen, I remember we had talked the previous week. We were talking about the Final Four and, how we were offering extended limits, took a 10-dime bet on Iowa. Same thing happened in the national championship game. That same customer came in and made another bet. So we did extend limits on it, but it was still, probably 2, almost 3-1 on the men's. Now, when we look through, previous years on what women's games handled, yeah, this year, 4, 5, 6 times the amount of bets and tickets and money obviously came in. Of course, the money was a lot more because we were extending limits. and taking bigger bets because of Iowa and the popularity of Caitlin Clark. So that obviously helped the bottom line as far as handle goes. And yeah, we offered a lot more props. We offered a lot more things. I mean, I don't even think we had in-game on it last year. We had in-game this year on it. So it's kind of one of those things where, you're offering in-game over the counter on a certain event. That means it's an event that you expect to, see a lot of action and a lot of tickets over the counter.
Arthur, I'll let you guys hold my money for the next year at the Westgate if you'll give me odds right now that I can bet that next year's men's final will have a higher rating than the women's final, unlike this year. I think with Caitlin Clark gone, that might have been a one-off event, to say the least. Hey, look, while we're talking about sports that might be a little dicey for the book, NFL draft, women's college basketball probably is something lower limits as well. Normally, like you said, you bumped them because so much public money was coming in with Caitlin Clark. Let's talk NBA this final week of the regular season. I mean, talk about lines jumping around. The last two games for the Celtics, they went, one team went from a 3-point dog to like a 3-point favorite. We saw it again last night. Celtics went from a dog to a favorite. They ended up losing outright to the Knicks. But are limits lower this time of the year? I mean, what are you guys doing to get through this final week of the regular season, and how dicey is it with the information popping out, who's sitting, who's not playing, etc.?
Well, Steve, this is something we've obviously fought all year. I mean, when you have to basically live on an underdog Twitter account because you need to know who's being put in and who's being put out. This is the NBA from the first week of the season. It's just the way it is. Obviously, the last week of the season is a lot crazier. No, the limits are not lower. It's the NBA. You can't limit, the NBA. But, I mean, just look at today. What is there, 14, 15 games? You got 8 double-digit spreads. You got a couple more that are in the 7 to 8 point range. It's just really tough. But I will say this. You don't see a lot of people really running to bet. A lot of things you would have seen move a lot this morning. And I really only have a couple. I mean, Houston, Portland, the total's gone up from 217.5 to 219. A little bit of sharp money there. And OKC playing Milwaukee, it was 13.5. It's now 15.5. Sharps bumped that up, And obviously the last couple of days, too, we haven't really done a lot of overnights. Haven't been wanting to put up a lot of overnights in the NBA because of that. So for this, we're really just trying to get to the playoffs, because we know how great the handle will be for the NBA playoffs. It always is.
Playoffs? Art DiCesare. We got just a moment or two left for them. Risk management. So are you the risk supervisor? I always call you risk management supervisor. Is it irrelevant?
It's irrelevant. You could call me risk management, risk supervisor, anything of that. I'm on the risk team.
Just don't call him risky. Just don't call him risky. Is all right.
On the risk management team over at the Westgate Superbook here in Las Vegas. He's a great follow on Twitter at ArtDice21. And we've got just a moment or two left to pick his brain. So let me see how much more info we can get out of him. Let's start with this. We got NHL and MLB. Give me some thoughts on who the pros like, who the Joes like, and is there anything that stands out to you this evening that might be something you would be considering wagering on?
Yeah, a couple quick things to the NHL. Obviously a smaller card, but the NHL is going to provide a lot more kind of playoff games here in the next couple of days, with a lot of seeding needing to happen, especially in the East. Carolina is one of those teams still looking to win the division against the Rangers. Open them $1.90 versus St. Louis on the road. Now minus 210. So you've seen a 20-cent move there. And obviously Vegas very popular with the public players laying the money tonight against Minnesota. A couple things in Major League Baseball, a couple totals. Pirates and Phillies bet over 9 overnight, now 9.5. Dodgers, Padres bet over 8 overnight, now 8.5. And the Mets taking some money today. Mets open minus 115 against those red-hot Royals, now up to minus 132 for us. So a 15-cent move on the Mets versus the Royals.
Arthur, any early liability? Yeah, I was going to say, Teddy, any liability heading into the NHL play? I was going to ask him baseball, but what about NHL futures? Any liability or NBA futures with the playoffs around the corner next week?
I would say our big one in the NHL is Vancouver. Vancouver kind of, not that they were a surprise, but the fact that they were, fighting for the President's Trophy all year, had a really good year. At one point were 50, 60 to 1, which means, they were 30, 25 to 1 to win their conference. So little liability on Vancouver, both to win the West and to win the Cup. NBA, really not that much. I mean, there's so much money on the teams that you would expect, like the Celtics and the Nuggets. Their numbers have been low all year. I mean, there was some love throughout the year with the Clippers, but we kind of kept their number low and kind of felt the Clippers were good. Maybe the Suns, because the Suns have yo-yoed all year and people have bet the Suns, but I think the liability is way less with, long shot teams in the NBA as they kind of are in the NHL. As you guys know, NHL playoffs, once you get in, anything can happen.
Right.
Sure, which is kind of the opposite of the NBA playoffs where the chalk tends to reign supreme. And you can take as much Phoenix money as you want. They ain't winning any title this year. That's going to... Art, tell us what's going on at the Westgate Superbook. Tell us what's going on in your life. Promote yourself, my friend.
Well, listen, let me just shout this out, too, for, obviously it's Masters Week. We got a lot going on as far as updated odds. And then Saturday and Sunday, we're going to be doing, in-tournament, in-game betting on it. So look for that. If you're around, if you're in the book, you got the app, we will be putting out basically, hole-by-hole stuff where, the leaders can change as we go. So we do offer that during the Masters. Look for some updated, matchups, updated odds, all that. Don't forget that even though the Masters has started, you still will be able to get in and make some bets on that. And as always, guys, come down to the Westgate, make some, listen, sign up for the app, a lot going on. We got Kentucky Derby futures coming up. That's about, less than a month away, first weekend of of May. So a lot going on. I mean, in NBA and NHL playoffs, we're going to be very busy here in the next month.
Westgate Superbook in Las Vegas, Nevada. And as much as I love seeing Arthur on Fridays, he gets very nervous when Prez isn't here because that means he might be within shouting distance of the Superbook, but I don't believe he is this time. Arthur DiCesare, every Friday, hopefully, throughout the year here on WagerTalk TV. Yet another reason to hit subscribe and hit the bell for instant alerts. Thumb up, like, keep the content free. And don't forget, comment also on the replays here on YouTube. I read all the comments. I reply back. Let's win together. I will be doing a solo NBA video, maybe some MLB free pick videos today as well. Teddy will be back at 4:15 Eastern on the live NBA show. We also have a live baseball show at 2 Eastern. Check out my best bets for Friday night baseball and basketball, along with those daily free plays cashed again last night. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. And once again, my number one ranked NBA, get the rest of the season the next 2 months for just $2.50 a day. No promo code needed. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. Teddy, enjoyed hosting with you the last 2 days. Prez will be back on Monday. Don't you worry. Take us home.
Prez should be back on Monday. If he makes the final table, he'll have to stay an extra day.
So is he in Vegas?
On the no.
Uh-oh.
No. He's at some tournament in Montreal.
Wow.
Some World Series of Poker. It's a qualifier, the World Series of Poker qualifier in Montreal.
The Canadian version.
If he makes the final table, he won't be here on Monday. That said,
I'm available, man. I'll pencil it in just in case. What's that?
Yeah, we're taking the
odds. Are we putting odds? Let's post odds in the live chat and on the replay.
Just bet to know. That's all you need to know.
Okay.
But that's going to wrap it for the week here on Wager Talk Today. Steve talked about a lot of the other programming we have on the show, including the NBA tip-off show this afternoon, Wager Talk Extra Saturday morning. There's all kinds of stuff. Subscribe to the channel. Get on board with a handicapper and enjoy your weekend. We'll be back on Monday. Cheers.